Hey guys, welcome to the channel. You're watching the Art Occultist with me, Elisa. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. Today we are doing a very improvised video, and truth be told, I still haven't decided the topic of this video, but we are just rolling with it. I was just recording some channeled messages from Hekate for my other channel, the Liminal Oracle. So if you haven't subscribed already, go check it out. But I felt that I needed a break from all of the collective readings, and I decided why not use the time to film a video for this channel. So I have my notebook with video ideas here in front of me, and I have a few ideas that I am going to go through right now, and I'm going to decide which one I want to film. So the first thing that we can do today is deck review. The next option is I can speak on starting on my spiritual journey. Then I have how to build a relationship with a deity, why I chose to follow an alternative spiritual path is another topic that we can speak on. And then I have 3 video ideas of my top five tarot decks, oracle decks, and top 5 decks for professional use or readings. So what do I want to do today? Maybe we can speak about why I chose to follow an alternative spiritual path. I think that that's a very important topic for myself, but also for other people that are following different spiritual paths than the mainstream religions. And yeah, I think that that's the topic that we are going to be speaking on today. So why I chose to follow an alternative spiritual path. It sounds good. So let me just mark it real quick so that I know that it's done. So let me start with sharing a little bit about my background. I am Bulgarian and I was born in 1996. And I started my spiritual path back at 2009. So I was in my first or second year of high school, and basically it was a coincidence that I started this path. I'm saying coincidence, but I don't really believe in coincidences. So, okay, the story goes like this. As a child, I was always fascinated with the magical, the mystical. I was obsessed with witches, magicians, vampires all over media, books, literature. I was reading fantasy around those topics. And reading was a big part of my childhood. It was somewhat of an escape mechanism for me because I grew up in a, let's put it like this, unhealthy family environment with a lot of substance abuse and physical abuse as well. And it was no place for a child to be growing in. So I was spending a lot of time reading books and escaping from my living situation. And it was my way to deal with my everyday life. When I was in high school, I wasn't a perfect student, and most often than not, I was extremely bored. So this led to me skipping school on a regular basis. I didn't like my school. I didn't like the majority of my classmates. And it was very hard for me to form meaningful connections because of my the family environment, the situation at home. It was affecting me really deeply, and I was trying to protect myself. I wasn't allowed to share what was going on, so I couldn't make friends, and I didn't resonate with a lot of the things that kids at that age were chatting about and their normal everyday lives. So this resulted in me skipping school quite a bit. And what I did when I skipped school, I visited my local library, and I was spending so many hours in this library reading all types of stuff, all types of books. Very early on, I actually developed huge, huge interest around different religions and spiritual paths. I was reading a lot of very deep psychological texts. And in these formative years, I was a teenager. I was 12 or 13 years old. So I didn't understand everything that I was reading, but I was obsessed of finding answers around human behavior from all of those perspectives: spirituality, religion, psychology, philosophy, because I was having this deep inner need to understand why my parents were acting the way that they were. And I I really wanted to understand how to navigate my own emotions, even at this very early stage of my development. I was very aware. I was always the grown up of my family, of my household. And my mother, uh, to this day, tells me that I am the wisest and the most aware person in our family, which is not something to brag about, because I feel like my childhood was stolen from me in a sense. I had to grow up very quickly in order to protect myself, emotionally, mentally, etc. And in my formative years, I was dealing with a lot of mental health struggles, and basically I was dealing with them and still am to an extent. I was developing a severe eating disorder, health issues, all due to the stress that I was subjected to in my home environment. And spirituality became something that was my biggest support. But let's get back to how I actually started this journey. So, one of those days that I skipped school and I was in the library, it's a public library, not my school library, just to differentiate. I stumbled upon a Wicca one on one book in the kind of religion section slash spiritual section, because at that time there was mostly texts that were related to the mainstream religions, meaning there were a couple versions of the Bible, the Christian Bible. There were a couple versions of the Quran, the Muslims' sacred text. There were some books on Buddhism and Eastern philosophies, but nothing major. The majority of the texts in that section were about Christianity because Bulgaria is a Christian country. And a lot of folk beliefs in the mythology section, all those types of stuff and books and texts. But finding a Wicca book was a revelation because I have never heard about paganism and witchcraft and Wicca. This was the first time that I actually stumbled upon something different, something that's different from Christianity, Muslim religion, and Buddhism, to be quite honest. And at that point, I had already read the Bible, and I knew that it wasn't something that I wanted to participate in. I read the Bible very, very early on. Actually, I remember being a very young child and owning a Bible for children and reading through that. And I was being left with so many questions, being so confused. And I remember that nobody could answer my questions that I had. And when I grew up in my teenage years, I read the Bible in its normal state, I don't know, not the one adapted for children, but the Bible as it is. And it felt ridiculous. I don't want to make anybody feel bad about their religion, but to me, the Bible and Christianity as a whole, as a religion, it felt ridiculous. It felt abusive and it wasn't helpful at all. So when I stumbled upon Wicca 101, it was Wicca for Teenagers by Silver Raven Wolf. I was intrigued. I resonated so much with this. It was nature based, and nature is something that I've always loved and I've always felt connected to. And it resonated with me. And I got the book. I borrowed it from the library. I checked it out from the library. I don't know the correct term for that, but I took it home and I read it the very same day. And from my current perspective, this book is very cheesy, very unbalanced. Even I no longer consider myself to be a Wiccan, but this is where I started my alternative spiritual path, and I found my power in that path. So Wicca, I know that a lot of people like to bash on this religion because Wicca is a religion, but for me it will always have a special place in my heart because it gave me back a sense of control over a very difficult living environment. And it taught me that I in fact have power. So this is where I started my spiritual path. And I started because I needed something. I needed support. And I wasn't finding it from anything else. And basically, I was a practicing solitary Wiccan for the majority of my high school years. And when I was 18, I had a few years that I wasn't actively practicing and pursuing spirituality. I developed a bit of an addictive habit myself towards alcohol. I was drinking, I was partying very hard in my university years, right after high school and the last year of high school even. And there were a few years that I wasn't doing anything spiritual. I was solely focusing on, it wasn't even a focus, it was an active party addiction type of state. I was really depressed, really struggling with my mental health at this time, and life was just a shit show. So, yeah. But at some point, I managed to bring myself to my senses, and I returned back to spirituality. Uh, in my teenage years, even though I was a Wiccan, actively practicing Wiccan rituals, the Sabbath observances, the Esbat observances, I was reading and researching a lot about other alternative spiritual paths. So Wicca opened the door to the occult and the mystical. And it showed me that it was a valid way of living and expressing yourself. And tarot was a big part for tarot was a big part of those explorations. So I got my first tarot deck very soon after I checked my first Wicca book from the library. I saved my weekly allowance, and I was desperately trying to find a deck, because at this time in Bulgaria, different spiritual traditions were not popular. So there weren't pretty much any books. Tarot decks were something that it was so inaccessible. It's not like it is today. Today you can order pretty much anything you want from the internet and get it the next day or the next week. But back then, I really searched for a tarot deck to buy one. It was something that was very hard to come by. And I remember going to a local bookstore and browsing through their spiritual section, and I found a few oracle decks, angel oracle decks, which were never for me. I knew it back then, I know it now. No. But I was lucky, I found a copy of the Rider Waite Smith Tarot, and it was very strange because it was a Bulgarian translated copy. So I got it, I took it home, and I've never looked back, honestly. So this is how I began my spirituality. Since then, I've studied multiple spiritual traditions. I studied a lot of Satanism, non-theistic Satanism. Let me clarify that. The Satanic Bible was very formative for me in those early days, in my teenage years. I was reading a lot of Crowley. Later on, after the whole relapse into my addiction in my university years, I got back to my spirituality. I was learning a lot about shamanism, core shamanism. I was researching a lot of Tengrism, which was a form of shamanism that my ancestors practiced. The old Bulgar nation practiced Tengrism or Tangrism. I don't know the correct English pronunciation. I was reading a lot of theosophy and a lot of Eastern philosophy. So yeah, I chose a alternative spiritual path for myself because it's way more in touch with reality. It's way more supportive. It's way more useful, and it doesn't ask from you to abandon your human nature. It embraces physicality as well as spirituality. And for me right now, I don't differentiate between the physical and the spiritual. For me, they are two parts of the same, two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. And we live in a material universe, but we are spiritual beings. So you can never separate the physical from the spiritual. And this is why I am a on this path, because I truly believe that it is useful. It has improved my life significantly. I've connected with a lot of different spiritual entities over the years. I've been in a lot of spiritual relationships over the years. And this is the only thing that has had long lasting effects on my personal development and my it is the only thing that actually helped me survive my upbringing and actually make something positive out of those negative experiences growing up. My spirituality doesn't ask of me to suppress my traumas. Uh, Quite the contrary, my spirituality and my path and my deities, Hekate, for example, she is the main face of the divine that I'm connected to. I am devoted to her. And she is one that embraces all sides of life, the darkness, the light. She is my guide, my mother, my spiritual mother. And I don't think that any other spiritual path is fitted for me or has the ability to affect my life to the extent that my personal path did, and to embrace my own uniqueness, because I see the mainstream religions and paths as restrictive. They try to mold you into their framework. They try to make you a slave in a way, a servant. And when you follow your own unique path and explore different traditions, when you give yourself the permission to see what thing is actually true for you and right for you, you don't conform to anything. You truly step into your own power and sovereignty, and you actually grow. You don't suppress yourself and you don't repress any parts of yourself. You truly evolve and grow and expand and understand and integrate. And the most miserable people that I met are closed-minded Christians, because they live in this perpetual state of fear, of shame, and of guilt, because they don't allow themselves to be human. They repress their humanity. And this is something that, for me personally, is quite stupid. And I don't understand why anybody would want to do this to themselves, to live in fear and to live in this perpetual state of, how do I say it, separation. Because all of the major religions, the popular religions, they claim to be the only true way to salvation. And there's no such way. And they create a lot of separation, a lot of conflicts, a lot of violence is present. And those are things that I could never understand, especially coming from my background and having experienced a lot of violence in my home environment. a lot of separation, a lot of traumas and unresolved emotional issues that actually caused this violence. I could never get behind a religious structure that operates and based itself on those principles to an extent, even if they preach love and the Holy Spirit and all that. It's not true. Christianity for me is just a form of mainstream control and fear and politics and separation. So, yeah, this is why I follow my own path. I am an explorer. I go wherever my goddess takes me, and I am open to accept and explore all parts of myself. And sadly, in my personal life, I don't have anybody that is spiritual and that I can speak to about all of those deeper, important topics. And actually, that's why I am here on YouTube, because I can find like minded people that I cannot in my everyday life. And let's be honest, we all need connections and to feel connected and understood by other people and humans. And yeah, that's why I practice what I practice, because it supports me, it makes me a better person. It doesn't ask me to judge other people for their choices and decisions. I may not agree with them, I may not like Christians and their way of living, but it's none of my business. I don't go over to them and ask them to convert to following Hekate instead of Jesus. So, yeah, this is why I follow myself, my goddess, and my alternative spiritual path. I hope that you enjoyed my rambles. It was a very rambly video. Let's not lie to ourselves. And yeah, if you are on a alternative spiritual path, tell me in the comment section why. What is your reason? How your spirituality is benefiting your life? And how you started your journey. I am curious to learn and to connect with you guys. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, for your support, for watching, and for I'm really thankful for this little community and for all of the engagement. It really helps me see that there are people out there that truly understand my experience and that are walking a similar path as myself. Once again, thank you so much. My name is Elisa, and you're watching The Art Occultist. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.